just especially the worst thing that can happen for them, for the things that they fear and the things, and for those internal conflicts. So, I mean, for Elizabeth Bennet, she is very proud, and so having her sister run off, and she needs Mr. Darcy's help. They need help, and they don't have anyone to turn to. I mean, so find something bad and think about what is the bad thing that would happen to this person that's going to make them face their inner demons and change and grow.
Well, she was prejudiced, and she was prejudiced against Darcy, so having him be the one to help was what was so hard for her. And he was the one that was proud and had to go back on his pride to write her the letter and explain everything and to go help her sister and to do all these things because he did love her. And even though she rejected him, he still, he swallowed his pride and did all that for her anyway.
And another thing, when you're talking about inner demons, we all have them. We all have things that we fear. Every person has some sort of innate thing that they're terribly paranoid about. The fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, the fear of not being the wisest, wittiest person in the entire room. There's all sorts of little things that we're afraid of. And we bring that into every human contact that we come in contact with. That was super eloquent. Are you guys proud of me? I kind of am. But it actually, those fears actually prevent us from forming meaningful connections. And it prevents those barriers that we put up keep us from those relationships that could be really pivotal. So those things are really important too, is what kind of things has that character got going on that pushes other people away? What does she have internally that is off-putting?
I think, whatever you want to do, I mean, think outside the box, go big. Just make sure, especially when you're revising, that whatever you're throwing at your characters fits for their character from the very beginning, and it fits in with the overall plot and the subplots. So it's not like, oh, that came out of left field. Where did that come from? That was contrived just to have this conflict,
But I do think that you need external conflict too. You have to have the internal conflict developed really well, but there has to be external conflict too. A story like Pride and Prejudice is timeless and it's amazing and wonderful, but if you were to try and get that published right now, you'd have a really hard time doing it because it's a very slow burn. It's all characterization. That's just in our society, in our climate, readers want excitement, they want the plot driven forward, they want everything propelled and exciting, and we're driven by media and movies and video games and all these things, and so there are definitely people who love the classics and love Pride and Prejudice, but if your goal is to be published, the reason why I say throw the worst thing you can at your characters is because if the worst possible thing happens and they somehow make it through that, that's what's going to grab your readers and make them excited. And yeah, of course it has to match what you're building. You can't just all of a sudden throw a lava dragon at them if they're living in New York City, unless you've established that there is a lava flow under New York City and there's some dark wizard society that's hidden and they control these lava dragons. But
Sarah just came up with the coolest book ever. Lava dragons in New York City. Guys, seriously.
Okay, don't take it. I'm gonna publish it. I'm just kidding.
No, I think. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I think internal conflict really is triggered by external conflict. So that's where you want to look at is what's going on in the surroundings, what's going to trigger your characters to either be set off or to run away. You have your fight, your flight, your freeze and fawn, the four reactions. And so those are things you want to decide about your character. Are they the kind of person who's going to run at conflict, or the kind of person who's going to freeze up, can't do anything? And that's a great place to start out, is what is going on in the surroundings that's going to trigger them. I see it a lot in young beginning authors who they write these scenes and they don't take into consideration how it's going to affect the character. They just want this dialogue to be going on, but I'm like, yeah, but you've got this thing over here that's probably going to trigger this character. And so, I don't know if any of that made sense, but yeah, it's easy to get to the internal conflict if you use your surroundings to get there.
And as a reader, honestly, if it's just romance and there's nothing else going on, I'm bored, and I'm probably not going to finish the book. So, use that for what you will.
What Sarah was just saying about, or just the observation that we're all kind of hyper now and we want excitement, we want things to happen really, really fast. Is that what has led to there being very little depth depth in the romances that, and this is not, oh wow, that sounds like I'm insulting all of you. And I don't mean that. What I'm saying is there's a whole lot of, oh, he's really cute, I'm in love. You know what I mean? Not a lot of, like, it happens really fast. So are people interested in reading anymore the kind of more realistic development of relationships?
On it a little bit with his last comment, actually. If you can get a really good character where the reader is able to feel the character's emotions as they're experiencing things, I don't think it has to be quite so hit, action, action, action. Because they're going to be emotionally invested in this person. And so you can have things move at a slower rate with a slower burn if you've got your readers really invested in that character.
Okay.
Anybody read Twilight?
Yeah.
So the second book, you know how the second book is her just pining and pining and moping and moping and the whole thing.
And then wanting to kill yourself at the end of that.
Right, and you're just like, oh my gosh. But you still read the book. You get through it, and she somehow manages to keep you going.
You still
And
bought
so-
book 3.
Yeah, and you
right.
still want book 3, and
Okay, so we really do want the depth in there and the connections in there. We don't just want that, oh my gosh, she's
Well,
so
and
cute.
that's the true balance.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, that's the balance, and that's where you're gonna have the difference between a book that's publishable or not, is that if you only have action and no depth, that's not good. If you only have depth and no action, that's not good. It's the mixture of both. It's being able, I mean, you can't just have this constant flying up into the sky, like, you can't have this exponentially rising conflict the whole time. There has to be ebb and flow for your readers so that they get a second to breathe in between the big exterior conflict and action scenes. So I'm sorry if that was misleading about. I mean, I don't mean like throw the worst thing at them and then throw them the next worst thing and then even worse thing, like chapter.
We always ask the reader, yeah.
Yeah, but like for example, in Defy, the worst thing that can happen is not something that I'm gonna throw at her. But at that, like, there's a scene where she's out in the jungle with a fellow guard and she's trying to pretend to be a boy, and they're searching for something, and they're having this discussion at night, and I was sitting there thinking, something else needs to happen in this scene that's more exciting than this. This discussion's important, but something else needs to happen. And so I'm like, she hates the jungle, she's terrified of the animals in the jungle, and so a jaguar attacks them. That's the worst thing that could happen to her in that moment, but it wasn't the worst possible thing ever. And it also was a catalyst for other things that happened right after that. So, and it led to more depth in her relationship with that person. So it's that tricky balance of the exterior conflict and the exciting things, but they need to lead to something. They need to lead to an exposing of themselves, or to greater depth, or opening up more, or the person that's super closed off has to admit something.
Is one of my very favorite writers for romance. She has that beautiful balance of really deep characters and really great action. She does it so well. She's like this mastermind of action and romance, and she puts it all together in a way that is super fun. And those are characters that as soon as I start reading, I'm like, I'm going to be here a while, grab me some snacks, and do I have children? No, I don't. They can take care of themselves. They have a father. And I'm in this book for forever. And it doesn't matter what she buys, I'm on a standing order, or what she writes, I'm on a standing order for anything. I buy everything she writes. She's my favorite.
I love Karen Marie Moning. Her books are a little more adultish, but her Fever series actually is probably my favorite, and the romance arcs over the entire series, so you don't get, like, it's at book 5 when the romance goes in. But she writes the conflict and the characters so well that it's one of those, you're thinking about it after you've read the book for days and days and days, and it's practically consuming you. And there's a lot of other good examples. Iris Johansson does some great historical romance. Patricia Briggs is fantastic.
I'd have to say Jane Eyre. I love Jane Eyre. I read it over and over again, and it's because of the character. Like, Mr. Rochester isn't much of a prize. I mean, let's be honest. But Jane Eyre, her character is so deep and so real. I think that Charlotte Bronte did such a great job with her, and so I read that one over and over, and I really enjoy it every time.
Did you want to go?
I mean, I'll go. I don't read romance.
I'm putting him on the spot. You must answer, Michael.
I know, I don't really read romance. I do write, but I read stories, lots
But
and lots
romance
of stories.
is everything.
Oh, but
Romance isn't everything.
what best describes you?
Nothing. I'm so uniquely strange and odd. But no, I grew up on the C.S. Lewis Chronicles of Narnia. Grew up on those. I read those probably 20 times each. So that's where my fantasy started. But there's not much romance in there, so.
Oh, it doesn't have to be romance.
Oh, okay.
It's just.
Okay, I thought we were.
Oh.
Strictly romance.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So there you go.
So I never am good at answering what is your all-time favorite, because I've always been a voracious reader, and I've also read really widely. I mean, I read Jurassic Park in 5th grade and Pride and Prejudice in 6th grade, and I love them both, and they're complete polar opposites, you know? So a lot of times Outlander is like the most recent book that I've read that I really enjoyed, and I kind of already touched on it, but I was the Sarah Maas series, and the sequel, A Court of Mist and Fury. One of my favorite things is when you can take a character, and as a reader, you go on a journey with this character, and you think that they're one thing, but then you find out they're really another. And then if you go back and reread the first book or the first whatever, you see it in a totally different light, and you recognize their actions in a totally different way. And that's kind of what I tried to accomplish with Damien in my series. And Sarah Maas did it like way better than me, but but I that was one where the world building is incredible, the romance is incredible, the fantasy is amazing, the magic system, and then again it's that fairy tale element, the retelling of fairy tales and everything. So that definitely has been a favorite of mine.
Oh, did you say Sarah Maas? Is that what it was?
Maas, it's Sarah Maas, M-A-A-S. Yeah, but again, that series does have content in it. Her other series of Throne of Glass is also fantastic and has a little bit less content.
I've always been a big daydreamer, so those are the kind of characters I kind of like follow, like the ones that kind of like wander around through the woods and kind of always in their own head. And then on that note, I always like Neil Gaiman and his books and the way he creates his characters. And my more favorite one right now is at Ocean at the End of the Lane. It's about a boy who also reads C.S. Lewis, living a traditional home, and an evil creature comes to live with him as a nanny. And then there's the three women, or the Hemstocks, that kind of show up in all Neil Gaiman's books. And they're kind of similar to witches, and they live at the end of the street, and there's this ocean between two worlds, and just that kind of stuff. The fantasy, the what's out there, the imagination portion of it, that's what gets me.
Okay, so Michael sort of touched on embarrassment in writing romance books, or is that,
Absolutely none.
you know,
That's
like
not-
how do you,
No,
with
and
writing?
I just wanna say, just because I haven't done a lot of reading of romance, I've done some, but I actually am in the process of writing a romance novel, so yeah, I mean, no embarrassment at all.
Well, no joke, they do. There's a reason for it.
Just straight up like romance. That, yeah.
Right.
I mean, you have your occasional outliers like J.K. Rowling and stuff, and that it's not a straight up romance, but
Or
on the
Stephen
whole,
King, but
yeah,
I'm
Stephen
just
King.
saying
On the
in
whole,
general.
the romance writers make the most money, and I don't know that any of us up here are like straight up romance writers either. Like mine is young adult fantasy, but it has a romantic element. You guys have romantic elements.
I actually do straight up romance as well as all the other things that I do. My straight up romance books outsell everything else I do 5 to 1. So when I financially am feeling needy, I write another romance. Okay, so I'm kidding. Actually, I really love romance. There's nothing embarrassing about it for me, and I don't feel any shame in it, and I don't think anybody should. I think romance is perfectly natural. We are creatures who crave love. That's a part of the human condition, and it's okay, and there's nothing to be ashamed about or feel embarrassed or weird about.
Well, and I will say this, as a fangirl, when you are fangirling with another girl over a romance book, there is a bond there. You guys are gonna like geek over the same guy and talk about how awesome he is. This fictional character that doesn't exist, we will like dream about him later that night. You know, we have a fun bond, and it's fun as a writer to have readers enjoy my characters in the same kind of way. So that.
Favorite book series that turns into a movie series?
I love Lord of the Rings and I love the movies.
I mean, I'm just
The
gonna grab
extended
that one
versions,
too.
but the extended versions. Because the short
Yeah.
versions cut things out, but I was like, what? And then the extended version put it back in, so.
I really loved Harry Potter. I really loved it.
Princess
Right.
Princess Bride. I think that's the best book to movie adaptation ever. I mean, really, they did it right.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
I agree with that.
did it word for word, which is awesome.
Wow, what's the panel after
Man's
Did we
been
say what
on.
we're gonna do next real quick?
Yeah, let's do that. Next, actually, kind of like right now, I'm heading to my book signing over at the Shadow Mountain booth, and I hope to see you. Really fun to talk to you.
Awesome, and I've got a booth in the back. I'll be doing Woven signing in there. Come find me.
I'm at booth 618 with a bunch of other awesome authors that can speak. There's bookmarks up here if you want them.
I'm at booth 1703, it's kind of right over here by the burrito place, it smells great over there.
I have a signing at the Shadow Mountain booth, 1807 from 11:30 to 12:30, and I also have some bookmarks up here if you want them.
I'm gonna be wandering around in costume the rest of the day as Azrael from the Batman series. My son is the Red Hood, and then I know you guys will be Nero. So thank you guys for coming out. And